I'm sure you watched a bunch of motivational videos about how to overcome struggles, but this is my story of what I've actually went through to get past all of these problems. Challenge after challenge, from being harassed by bullies at work and getting fired for standing my ground to being unhealthy, overweight, high blood pressure, coughing up blood, to my brother passing away and I had to plan his funeral, to breakups with women, going into debt and failing in business to start over. I felt like everything was crumbling around me, that I couldn't stand back up. Now, if you could relate, then this video is exactly what you want to hear. Let's get into it. Back in 2019, I had a period of time where everything crumbled in my life. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and it just kept adding on. It was a true situation where when it rains, it pours, and it felt like I couldn't breathe, like I couldn't get back up. I had no energy. I had no drive for life. In 6 months' time, I had six family members pass away: uncles, aunts, a good friend, and my brother. Every month, it felt like I was going to a funeral, and it felt like it just wouldn't end. The sadness wouldn't stop. The depression wouldn't stop. In addition, I ended a long-term relationship. I was heartbroken. We broke up a month before my birthday, which was December. It was the same time as the holidays. Christmas was around the corner. Thanksgiving just happened. And it just felt like there was no point to the relationship. So even when I left, there was a void. I felt like I was lost. Am I not good enough to be with anyone? Am I ever going to find someone that's worthy for it? It is what it is. That was just one part of the problems. That wasn't everything. On top of that, I lost my job. I was a pharmacy manager. I ran a large team, ran a team of 80 staff members, scheduling 1,000 shifts. There was just constant complaining nonstop. And when we tried to fix one problem, another problem popped up. It felt like I was playing the game whack-a-mole. As soon as you hit one down, something else comes up and you got to hit that. And then another one pops up and you got to hit that. So it was just nonstop at work, dealing with people's complaints of how they're unhappy and things like that. Situation where I had other colleagues that were bullying other staff members. And then it got to the point when they were starting to bully me. And I took a stand and I let them know I'm not going to tolerate that BS. One of the core tenets for me as a man is to set my boundaries. I believe in respect and I give everyone the respect. But if you mess with me, I'm going to let you know what time it is. So as soon as these staff members thought they could try and bully by antagonizing, being passive aggressive, being conniving and trying to throw wrenches in planned work duties and throwing wrenches and derailing processes that we were planning on implementing just because they didn't come up with it. So one day I had enough of it and I let one of these ladies in a clique know what time it is. And she couldn't deal with that. She didn't like the fact that as a grown person that I was scolding her, letting her know that we're not going to play these games and that we're not going to allow staff members to just do whatever they want to do and say whatever they want to say. When there's no basis, there's no research behind it, there's no metrics to support it, there's no need for throwing tantrums, and we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior. But in the end, what ended up is she started crying, played a Me Too, reported it. My manager sided with her because she was a doctor. I wasn't, but I was management. And so I ended up getting shafted from that position. So I was like, okay, cool. I bounced. Ended up after I left, the managers realized what I was doing and what I was trying to do to support the staff. And they had to replace me with four other staff members. So they got what they got in the end. Working in this pharmacy is very high school. There's just a lot of pettiness, a lot of gossip, a lot of tantrums in a high stressful environment. I could understand why some of this would come out, but there was no need for it, especially when we worked at a hospital pharmacy. Our goal at the hospital was to actually save near death and dying kids' lives. And so that was the focus. That should have always been the focus. But during these times that I'd go through these problems, these challenges, you could only feel what you feel. When my family members passed away, every funeral, all I could hear was people crying, see people hugging, hear them moaning, the grief. It was sad. I still remember the smell of the flowers, the food and refreshments that everyone pitched in and brought. In my head, I could still see all the black suits, all the black dresses, all the handkerchiefs that everyone was pulling out. Being Filipino, there's nonstop prayers. What we have is the novena. So 9 days of prayers for that person's soul. So every day we're at someone's house praying, eating food, crying, reminiscing, telling stories, laughing about those stories, taking shots of Hennessy, And this happened 6 times in a period of 6 months, with the last one being my oldest brother, who I had to plan. It was stressful. I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I couldn't stop thinking. My frustrations, my angers, they were all coming out of me. Just at the same time when I was being fired from a position. It seems like I was jumping in story, but the time I got fired from that healthcare position was a day right before my brother ended his own life on Father's Day. It was not an easy time for me. Everything piled up on me. Add a brick to the backpack, add another brick, add another brick. It just wouldn't stop. And I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. What's hard is all the emotions came at once, because not only am I grieving and hurt that my brother passed away and all these family members passed away, I'm thinking about my relationship, how it's ended, trying to figure out how to deal with those feelings of being rejected, feeling not good enough, feeling alone with no support, not feeling loved, all that at one time. Then on top of that, I have to think about work. I'm not good enough at work. I'm rejected. I'm not allowed to have a voice. I'm not allowed to stand up for myself. Was I doing good enough work? Obviously, my managers didn't think I was doing a great job. So I have all these feelings. They're all jumbled up. Put it in a pot of stew, season it up, stir it up, and you have a gumbo of straight fucking hell. During that time frame, all I could hear is my ex bitching and complaining, nagging, arguing about what? How I didn't do this. How do I need to show up? But at the same time, there was no trust between both of us. We were doing our own side things already, which was messed up. That's a whole nother story. And we'll talk about that some other video. Then all at the same time, I hear all the complaints of the staff, the bitching and crying from that side, that I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, that I'm not listening to them, I'm not taking care of them. There's 200 staff members. I run a team of 80. Really? Can I take care of everyone? Everyone should be adults enough to know your role and be able to take care of yourself, and I'll support you as best as I can. But no, they wanted everything done for them, to the point where I would even have to do the work. And they bitched and complained that when I used to do their work, I would tell them, there's no use for you to be here. Then I have to think about my brother passing away, how I was one of the last few people to talk to him, talk about his hurts, talk about how he was having problems with his family, that how he wanted certain things to work out and it's not working out. That the last thing that I heard from my brother is he said that he was tired. And when I left the house, I thought he was okay. But the last feeling I have after seeing him walk into the house, that this might be the last time I see him alive. And this is the one few times I wish I was actually wrong. The thing is, when we're going through all these issues, these challenges, we can't avoid them. It's a part of life. Remind you, this happened all in 2019. So what happened a couple months later? The shutdown occurred and I had to deal with all these feelings by myself. I had no one around me to support me. Yeah, I could call my mom. I could call my dad. I could call my brothers, my other brothers. I could call my best friends. I could call my cousins, but I could call all these people. There's something like being in the presence of an actual person and having that conversation, talking to them. Zoom wasn't doing it enough. We're all stuck at home by ourselves. So I had to deal with these issues by myself in my head every single day. It was a straight hell for me for a lot of months, almost a year, almost till they were loosening up the restrictions. That's when I started feeling comfortable, but I was stuck. And as I look back at it, there were certain things that actually stood out to me to help me get through these problems. It wasn't easy, but I think these few things that I'm going to talk about actually helped me find a new way of life, to reinvent and create a new life that I want in my own image of how I envision my life, of what I want to do with my future, so I could find happiness, fulfillment, joy, and peace. And these are great realizations. So the first thing that I learned that was very helpful to me is to realize that changes are inevitable. Nothing lasts forever. You have to be okay with it, but understand that everything is temporary. The good times are temporary, but even the bad times are also temporary. You can go through roller coasters of emotions. Some go up, some go down, some go up, some go down. There's a rhythm, there's a cycle to life. That's why there's seasons. So when all of these things were happening, I felt like it was the end of the world. It just wouldn't stop. When is it going to end? When is it going to stop? When am I going to catch a break? When am I going to catch a breath? That wasn't happening. That didn't happen for years. During that period of time, I didn't think I was going to last. I didn't think I could make it through it. I think I was going to be stuck in depression, alone, with no hope. I was constantly feeling frustrated. My blood was always boiling. I was angry, mad at the world that all these things happened to me, even though my intentions were pure and I wanted to do the best I could to help everyone around me, to also be the best I could be. I felt like I was being ignored. I felt like when people looked at me, they were looking through me. They weren't looking at me as a person. During that time frame, I felt like I was nothing. And my mind state at that time was that I was just in a quicksand of negativity. As much as I moved and tried to struggle, I couldn't get out. Every time I tried to climb myself out, it seemed like I was getting pulled back in. And that's where I came to the realization after I made it through that good times, bad times, they're all temporary. They don't last. Everything is temporary. The difficulties we face in life are like the seasons. There's a time for planting. There's a time for putting seeds into the ground, like spring, get those ideas out. Then there's a time to go double down and just grow as much as you can, push as hard as you can. That's summer. Leverage everything you can to maximize what you do. Then fall is like harvesting, where you take time to sit back and look at what you've done. And the challenges, they're like winter. Why? Because all these trees, they lose their leaves, they lose their growth, they lose their vibrancy. It's like they're just a tree stump. But remember, trees lose their leaves, but they stand tall. They don't give up. They don't die. They don't wither away. They just sit back, go through it with the season change. And when spring comes back, new leaves pop up. They wait for the new season. And that's just a great example of how life, even when you're getting pummeled to the ground day in and day out, keep going through it. It will change. It's just a matter of time and being willing to be persistent and continue on, push as hard as you can and to not give up because things will change. The bad times don't last. It's a season of our life that we need to go through. And it's a great time to learn, to reflect, figure out what went wrong and how you could avoid them in the future. Now, when I'm talking about debt, there's not really much, there's nothing you could change with that, but you could take lessons on how you want to live your life. And that's what I learned from my brother for me to build what I want to build. Now, another thing that I learned through this process of all these challenges, all these problems that stack up and you go through, that it's not that problems get easier to deal with. It's because you've gone through them, you built the strength and endurance to outlast them. So when you're going through a problem, it's not the end of the world. It's just problem solving. It's when you go through these problems, there's something that you can learn from them. And whatever you do learn, a new skill, a new tactic, a new perception or perspective on how you look at certain situations and how you deal with other people, it molds you into a new person. It molds you into a person that's better equipped to deal with these situations when you go through them again, or if you go through them again. One of the things that I learned through the stack of problems is it's totally opposite of school. What they say in school is you learn the lesson, then you get tested. In life is you're going to get tested with these problems. And then when you look back at them, you're going to learn the lesson. So some of the lessons I learned when it came to my brother and to my family members that died, spend time with your family, take care of them, check in on them, help them out when they need help. But the greatest lesson I learned from all of them was listen. Sometimes people just need someone to listen to them, not to judge, not to tell them how to solve their problems. Sometimes they just want someone there to listen so they could get it off their chest. Another lesson I learned is with my work. The lesson that I learned reaffirmed my stance of standing my ground. What happened was after I got fired, they had to replace me, but they didn't replace me with directly one person. They split up my responsibilities between multiple people. So I was carrying the workload of the actual crew. That just gave me the confidence to know that I actually did know what I was doing in my work. When other people are crying and complaining and management's not looking at what you're doing and they're just taking the word of other people, stand firm in what you know, what you've observed. It's okay to stand your ground. I got fired from the position and I actually moved into a better position because it gave me the time and space to recover because I was no longer a manager. I went to a staff position. I had a lot of free time. That gave me a lot of time to deal with my own personal issues and traumas. And it allowed me to build my businesses that I run now. So it was a blessing. Then on the point of my personal relationships, picking the wrong woman to be with, now I'm more cautious of who I am. I'm a lot more picky. And so I'm not just going to go with the female with the biggest tits or the biggest booty. Even though that's still important to me, I do have to pick certain things that are very important to me. Picking a woman that knows how to be around my family and be around other people. And then a woman that knows how to behave and control herself. Can't be wild all the time. At some point, you got to grow up. And if you want certain things from the man's perspective to be done, then a woman has to offer up some the things that the men want as well. That's just nature of the game. It's called a compromise. But all these lessons and learning, it's like you don't learn them until you go through them. It's like a baby learning to walk. A baby falls over so many times just learning to stand. They climb up the couch, they fall. They climb up and use the bed, they fall. They use the wall and they go spider crawl on it, then they fall, right? Or when they're actually almost at that point, as an adult, you're holding them up with your two fingers by their hands and letting them practice walking. They still fall. After time and time again of trying, going through these challenges, the baby eventually learns to walk. Then eventually they learn to run. They don't typically learn to walk and run off of the first instant. It's a process. And they're only going to learn through that experience. And it's the same with any of the life's challenges. We won't learn until we get into it. But after we get into it, we're a little bit more experienced and we're better equipped to deal with not only how to handle the situation on an actual tactical, strategic, and execution style of action, but also how to deal with the feelings and the emotions and the frustrations, the anger. Now, with after learning the lesson, but even when we learn to grow stronger through the lesson, we actually learn not to give up. And this is probably one of the most important ones because when all these bad things are happening, why would I choose to stay down? Why would I want to give up? It was important for me to get up and get moving. The reason why was life never stops. Time never ends. And if we don't get up, if I didn't get up, I would have been stuck in the same spot I was, stuck in the same mental condition I was, stuck in a predicament where I felt there was no way out and everything was caving on me, but time would have kept on moving. One of the things that people need to realize is that life is not going to stop for anyone. And when you're going through these situations, you got to understand, why would you want to stop in hell? If you're going through it and you're going through these frustrations, why stop in hell? Keep going till you get to the other side. It's only a matter of time. Keep working the problem. Keep trying to figure it out. This is one of the biggest things that I learned because 6 months, who goes through that? 6 funerals, ended a relationship, getting fired for your position, brother passing away. I didn't even talk about how I was unhealthy, that I was overweight. I had high blood pressure. My blood pressure at the time was 160 over 110. I was coughing up blood because of ulcers and my own doctors couldn't figure out. So stack all this stuff that was happening in a period of 6 months. Why would I give up there? I don't know why. Honestly, I just knew I couldn't stop where I was. And especially being alone during the shutdown when no one could go out. How do I resolve this? I started working out, get healthy. I mourned my brother and my family members. I took another position as just a staff member. I started reading books. I started watching the motivational videos that all of us try to watch. But when you're going through a season of downs, when it rains, it really does pour. And it took me years to get over it. And in some ways, I'm still not over it. It is just what it is. And it's just life. And during that time frame, when we're stuck at home, I'm very grateful for it because I had to dive into the grief. I did dive into the pain, the suffering, everything, and just work it all out. And for me, it felt like I was in a football dog pile, that I was at the bottom of the pile and everyone else was on me and I couldn't breathe. It was dark. I hear shouting. I hear yelling. I feel punches. I feel kicks. Everyone to fight for what I had, which was the ball, which was for me in that instance, my livelihood as a person, as a man. And I had to keep going. I had to find myself to survive that dog pile. It wasn't easy, but everything wasn't easy because I had to fight for not only to keep the ball, keep my livelihood. I had to fight to breathe. I had to fight to actually physically survive. And that's where I understood that even if you're at the bottom and everything is there, you got to make a decision and you got to take action quickly. You're already in the middle of your journey. So why stop in the middle of the ocean? Get to the shore that you need to get to. And that's what I did. I started taking it step by step, one by one, breaking down each problem and trying to resolve it. individually. It only would look difficult when I was looking at the big picture. But when I started fixing problems one by one, individual things. Okay, I got to deal with this BS text from my ex. All right, boom, respond to her, get out of my way. I had to schedule what day we are going to bury my brother. Okay, so break down the problem and start taking action on it. So, for example, after leaving the position, I actually started my own company, and it is a real estate investment firm called Hospi. I also help run a vending machine company now, and we're making a lot of money out of this, and we're growing really quickly. Whether it's business or a life, there's a step-by-step order. You can't go through the letter A, you can't go through the letter Z. You have to go through letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You have to go through the alphabet. That's just the nature of the game. There's no shortcuts, definitely. And so when I started my real estate investment firm, I had to create the LLC. Then I had to get a tax ID. When I get the tax ID, then I had to file with the state. When I file with the state, then I can open up a bank account. When I open the bank account, I can start actually buying properties and start renting them out. That's just one stage. Then the next stage, how do I run the properties? I have to hire a real estate broker to find me the deal. I have to hire a property manager who can run the day-to-day operations, an accountant so I could help manage the money, right? I have to hire all the contractors so they could do all the renovations. And then I have to find a leasing agent to get it rented out to other residents. Now, that's just one part of it. The second part of it is how do I grow the business? Now I got to network. I got to meet a lot of people, face-to-face interactions. I have to do marketing, whether social media content, ads, whatever I could do to get the name out. When you're taking actions and you're making decisions, it's all about problem solving. Whether you're building a new system or trying to solve your own problems, break them down into smaller components so you could actually fix those one by one. I like to call it the conveyor belt method. And the reason why it's like going to the grocery store. If you have a bunch of problems or things that you need to fix or address, it's like you're going through the grocery store with the shopping cart. And I need to do this, I need to do that. And you're grabbing all these ingredients off of the shelf. But when it's time to actually take action and do stuff, you could only do a conveyor belt method, which is like when you're at the checkout stand. You could only scan one item at a time. So yeah, you have all these problems, you have all these things, but when it's time to get to work, one by one, it makes it so much easier. And then no matter how long the list is or how big of the issue is, just chip away and just go through your list and work it. And with the amount of work that needs to be done, it's actually important that you don't get frustrated. It's normal as guys, we bottle up and we keep it contained. So it's important to talk about it with someone you trust. Just don't talk about it with just anyone. Even if it's just a good family friend, one of your best friends, your brother, even if you need to get professional help, do it. I think it's a great thing. Sometimes you need to just let those frustrations out. And it's okay to tell the person when you're telling them, I just need you to listen right now. Let me get this off my chest. It goes a long way, but it's important who you choose. Sometimes I can't tell someone I know who's never run a business about my business problems. They'll never understand. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel like we could relate. But I could talk to a lot of my friends about having relationships and the struggles I had with some of my exes. That's okay. Or I could talk to my dad about my situation at work because he was a leader. He had a 40-year career in the military. So he was able to guide me and help me look at the situation at work in a particular way. But I learned this lesson from my brother. The worst thing I ever heard my brother tell me was that he was tired. I didn't get it and I didn't understand it. Not at that time because I was in the position to understand and listen. The next day after I spoke with him, he hurt himself. He gave up. The police cut him down. The paramedics started CPR. One by one, I called my aunts, all my cousins about what just happened. My mom has 14 siblings. I have close to 100 first cousins. I called each one of them that morning. My brother's name was Arnell. He was named after Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. When we put him in his final resting place, it happened to be July 25th, the anniversary of the moon landing. I couldn't imagine the pain and suffering he went through, feeling hurt, that he wasn't feeling listened. And he erupted and did this. And that I'm regretful that I couldn't be more understanding and that I wasn't listening to him. I wasn't hearing him, how he needed to be heard. And that's why I say, when you share your frustrations with someone, make sure you know who it is, that they're in the right position to listen and understand. Because at that time I wasn't. I was already going through a lot of other things I had before too. And I couldn't see what I needed to see so I could be there for my brother. This lesson is important as guys, especially at our age in the 40s, because my brother was 47 when he did this. Don't bottle it up. Find someone to talk to. Find someone that will actually listen. And if you don't find the right one, it's okay. Find another one. Find another one. Find another one. It's better that you find someone that could listen to you so you could get this off of your chest. Share it with someone you care about that could listen. And for me, I have a few people in mind that I could share with. And I hope whoever's listening could share this too. But as guys, it's easy for us to bottle up everything, but then out of nowhere, we could snap. We erupt with frustration, anger, wrath, all wrapped up into one. Ultimately, nothing in life is perfect and nothing will ever be. But it's important to be resilient, adaptable, and flexible, and just keep going. Life is great when it's easy, but it's the bad times that make you stronger as a person. Pain and suffering is what turns men into the boys. We're forged in a fire, hammered into place from a raw piece of metal to something that's useful. And whatever's useful always has a purpose. Whatever challenges you face, it's just a way for us to sharpen up our skills. These are a few of the lessons I learned living the midlife. If you like this video, definitely share it and subscribe. Catch you later. Be easy.